Hi. Hello, cupcakes. Welcome to Cooking and Cosplay. So this is part 2 of our chocolate zucchini cake. And today we're going to be making the frosting. We're not going to get to the actual decorating part. We're just going to do the preparation today. So getting our fondant colored, getting our frosting going. And today I am cosplaying as Emma Verde. Her birthday is also in the month of February, so probably going up after her birthday already passed. But this is from one of her albums, so we love. Alright, so let's get started. So, wrote it a little nicer, but still just going to put the recipe on the screen afterwards anyway. We're going to make a crusted cream cheese frosting, which is just a fancy way of saying it's going to be a mix of cream cheese and shortening. So, shortening is not to everyone's palate, but it's going to be one of the most stable frostings. Well, American frostings. So, to begin, we'll get our butter and our cream cheese creamed up. Normally, a stick of butter is the best way to do it, but I don't really like sticks. So, if you're going to use any other form of butter besides a stick, 4 ounces equals 1 stick. Oh. So I just like to use a little scale to measure out my ounces. And both your butter and your cream cheese should already be softened, otherwise they are not gonna be very easy to work with. But yeah, once it's already softened, you should just be able to touch it and you can really see every single imprint from where I touched. Obviously use like a spatula or something to scrape off some of the inner parts. I just like to use the whisk that I'm already going to be using just to save on dishes a little bit. But yes, when you're creaming anything or making frosting, you'll always want a wire whisk paddle. And one of these works just fine if you're doing it by hand. So when creaming, you always want to have it on a higher setting, but gradually get there. So say my machine goes up to a 10, we'll start with like maybe a 4, 6, 8, and see how we're doing. And always cover before you start mixing too high. And here you can see just on a lower level what that's starting to look like as we turn it up. Creaming does take a little while, but you want to make sure you're watching it the whole time. It is very easy to break it, and once it breaks, it starts to look chunky, watery, and it will not come back together. And as you can see, as it begins to cream, that texture has completely changed. So once that's all creamed together nicely, you should be able to lift. So instead of just doing a plain vanilla, I'm also going to add graham cracker extract into it. You can find extracts for almost any flavor really that you want. Like, shit's crazy. I have one that's basil and another champagne. Why not? So if you're going to mix extracts, do half and half. Still do the correct amount of measurements. For that liquid portion, just divide it amongst your flavors. So because I need 2 tablespoons, I will be doing a tablespoon of each flavor. Alright. And then when you scrape, don't just scrape the sides, scrape all the way at the bottom, bring it up to the top just to make sure there's nothing just sitting right at the very bottom getting mixed. So it's pretty well done. Alright. I surely thought about it, but it's just butter and stuff. There's no sugar yet. So our next step is obviously to add the sugar in. That is sugar and salt. Because I use salted butter, that is why I skipped the salt step, because then you'd end up with too much salt. That is why most recipes called for unsalted butter. So the recipe calls for almost the whole 2-pound bag of sugar, because you kind of add sugar and see how it's turning out for the different consistency. Depending on how like stiff you're wanting it, you're gonna have to put more in there. If you're wanting it a little loose, you're gonna put less in there. And definitely it's to taste. So it's a gradual process. So right there, I'm just going to start with a cup and a half, get that incorporated before I start adding any more in. And definitely cover. Powdered sugar loves to fly. Like you can see some of that smoke is powdered sugar. You can already see the colors change, the consistencies change, and that's just from a little bit. But until it starts to really get volumized, you might have to stop it a few times just to make sure everything's incorporated and not all along the walls, because a lot of it will be. As you can see, it's whipping rather fast, but that consistency is very different than we even had just a few minutes ago. And periodically, as you're going along, once everything's well incorporated, we'll just take it and we'll see what we're looking with. So if you can take it and it stays completely still, like that peak has not moved, that's good. So now it's just important we like the taste of it. Oh, that's delicious. It's actually really nice. But because I know how I'm going to be using it, I'm just going to do a touch more powdered sugar just to make sure it's a little like fuller, a little thicker. But otherwise, this is a perfectly fine spot to end at. Alright, so our next step is going to be putting the frosting into piping bags, and I'm definitely going to take these cups off. They're very nice, they're cute, but they're going to get in the way and I don't want them to get messy. So, goodbye! Right. So, if say you do not have access or do not have actual piping bags, another trick is to use just a standard Ziploc baggie. We're going to fill it and then you'll snip at the bottom here, but you don't have to snip it until you're going to use it. So right now, just having a zippy bag is all you need. So we'll make sure it's all the way open. What I like to do is I like to put it around a cup, so that way it's got the height, I can fill it properly. Great thing about Ziploc bags is they fold over the edge of the cup really nicely. You can see that the tip is towards the bottom because that's where we're filling to. I guess maybe not, but hypothetically you should be able to see inside that. Another important thing is if you're doing what I'm doing, where I'm going to be using multiple colors, is to know how much of each color you need. I need the least amount of white, a little bit of gold, and a majority purple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some white out, put some gold off to the side in a bowl, mix in that coloring gently. We already mixed the frosting. And do the same with the purple, with the remaining purple. And we'll just nicely incorporate that in. Since I need the least amount of just white, this is a-okay. Make sure there's no big like air bubbles or anything in there. Looks good. Seal it off completely. Especially if you're not using it on the day you're making it, seal it. Airtight. Anytime you're using food coloring, especially food paste, which is way stronger than food coloring, try and use a glass bowl. Glass usually doesn't absorb color as much as plastic ones do. Now the food paste that I use is so strong, I literally just stick a toothpick in it and then wipe that into whatever frosting bowl, whatever I'm using, because a little goes a long way, and it's easier to just add a little bit more in. If you have to, like, you know, dilute the color, you're making more frosting. I'm literally just starting with that one dip. This is how much color we got in it. We'll mix it up and see what we're at. When you're mixing like a coloring in, you want to be very gentle. As I said, we already mixed this up. We don't want to over mix. So it's easy just to fold it in or just a gentle mixing. can already see, depending on how bright you were wanting this yellow to turn out, that little bit has colored this entire thing that I had to go in here. And then once it's fully incorporated, got it to a color that you want, bag it up. If you ever do get food coloring or food color paste on you, wash your hands right away. I don't know how well you can see, but like it stains your fingers super easily, so at least wash your hands so that way you're not transferring color to everything else you can possibly touch in your kitchen. We're going to do the same thing that we just did with the gold or yellow to the purple. Since the majority of it we need is purple, I'm keeping the rest of the bowl, mixing it up in there. Stainless steel is awesome at not absorbing any color or anything like that, so you do not have to worry. One thing that's always really important is not just to mix, because like, could I just say, yes, this is purple? Yes. But you see all these like big old streaks? You don't want to have those in there, so you're just going to keep mixing until that is fully incorporated. Another thing, always keep in mind the size of your bag. Do not overfill it or else it's going to like burst when you're trying to squeeze, because that's adding pressure to it. Probably stick to like no more than 2/3, almost like a cake when you're filling the pan. Don't go too high so that it doesn't explode on you. And then here we are with all of our bags ready to go when we're ready to frost. Alrighty, so our next step is getting our fondant colored and ready as well. Fondant is super sensitive, so it's always good to just have a list ready. Be like, these are the colors that I need, how much I need, what is their purpose. Have a game plan so that you know exactly how each piece of fondant is going to be used. Because especially once fondant takes color, no going back. And once it's over rolled or anything like that, no going back. So always start with a super clean surface. Don't cover in it in cornstarch when you're like rolling or anything, because then it will dry it out. But make sure you have a decent amount, almost like think about making bread, how you would put some flour and stuff out so it doesn't stick, and it helps the bread making process. But if you do too much, now you have a dry, dense piece of bread. Same thing happens to fondant. It's going to dry out. It's not going to be tasty anymore. I don't have a whole lot of bowls at my disposal for this because, again, we need to use glass. Do not use plastic for this. Especially fondant, it'll absorb any of, like, even though, yes, your dishes are clean, sometimes some of that food residue or smell or anything, fondant's going to absorb that and find it, and now your fondant, it's going to taste like the last time you made spaghetti. And nobody wants that. So always use glass or stainless steel for like rolling and mixing in your colors, because you are going to just kind of fold it in. Alright, so I got my block of fondant. Sometimes you just get little pouches or whatever at like Walmart, Target, whatever, just standard grocery store. You can go to like bigger places like Restaurant Depot, probably Costco, I don't know, I've never been. And you can get like a whole bucket, but if you don't plan on using fondant a whole bunch, you have no need for a big bucket. It's going to dry out and you can't use it once it's dried out. So you always want to make sure it's still got good texture to it. So this is what I mean. You have a little bit, make sure it's still malleable, kind of like Play-Doh. You want to be able to work with it. And then once you have a piece that you know you want to section off, like I know I need some white fondant, airtight. Do not play with fondant. If it is not airtight, it is going to dry out overnight. Make sure it is as sealed as possible. So once you get your little bit of coloring in there, you're literally just going to start folding it in. And see, this is what I'm talking about, making sure you don't have any other food colors on your hand. It caught on to other stuff already, so I'm going to go rewash my hands before I continue folding, because I want this to be a nice light pink. You can knead it on the counter, you can knead it in your hands, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. I would recommend though, if you're going to do it on the counter, tiniest bit of cornstarch, or maybe like something that would make your counter non-stick. Otherwise, just play with it a little bit like Play-Doh, but don't work it too much, or else it's going to get overworked and then it's going to not be as tasty anymore. But you definitely want to work the color in. And if you have small hands or your hands just get tired easy, you can always work in smaller chunks and then add it all together as a big whole. Because sometimes a smaller ball is just way easier to work with. Especially if you know you're not going to work super fast. Do not take out all your fondant that you're going to like color like all at once. Like I did just a couple of bowls, because I know at a certain point I'm going to start getting tired of just working through this. But it's for the love of art. And I wasn't getting it on camera, but obviously be sure to like wash your hands between every single color, because you want a solid color. You don't want to keep transferring along, unless I guess that is your goal, then I guess don't. But most of the time you don't want to contaminate your next color. So it's also easier to work from like lightest to darkest. Like do your light pink, your yellow, blue, purple, black, like end with your darkest color. But keep in mind, trying to explain the amount of work it is, it's like probably easier to show with like another deeper color. This is just once you first start mixing it in, before you completely start working it. Just how there'll be a couple of streaks in there, and we have to get it purely that color. But even just through a few twists, we're already a lot better. You can always mix colors as well if you need to get a little creative. Like I need like a burgundy color, so mixing like my reds and pinks with my brown hopefully will get us to achieve that goal. So especially if you know your like color wheel, color theories and all that kind of stuff, it will help you out. Apparently my camera doesn't want to show it very well, but then once you get it mixed up, you get those different colors that you're looking for. Then we're ready to rock and roll. Alrighty, now that we've got our little fondant rainbow, all the colors that we're going to need to decorate our cake, it's time to clean up. It's very good. If you can do it all in one day, that's awesome. If you can't, do not overstress yourself. Store things in an airtight container. Do not refrigerate fondant. But do refrigerate your frosting. Let it thaw before we're ready to work with it tomorrow. Ooh. And always remember to hydrate. Should have done more of that throughout the video. But that is all of our prep work that we need to start decorating tomorrow. I guess probably not tomorrow when I'm done editing videos and such. But next time we'll work on actually piping and frosting, crumb coating for the cake, straight up frosting the cake, rolling the cake balls with the fondant, as well as completely unopened in there. But we have little molds so we can get our little flowers and anything else we need. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time. Have a lovely day.